Dear children, good evening to every one of you. I am A. Manivannan, Zoology faculty of Sri Vidya Mandir Metric Higher Secondary School, Bothangarai. I hope you are very safe from COVID-19. So today we are going to see 11th Zoology, Unit 3, Chapter 6. So today we are going to discuss about respiration, breathing, respiratory functions, respiratory organs in various organisms, then human respiratory system, then characteristic features of respiratory surface, then levels of respiratory organs. Right. First, we are going to see defined respiration or what is meant by respiration. Respiration refers to exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the environment and the cells of our body is called respiration. So that oxygen and carbon dioxide, it says that the oxygen from the environment entered into the cells. Then carbon dioxide expelled out. From the cells. So oxygen entering into the cells and carbon dioxide expelled out from the cells. That is said to be respiration. Next, breathing. What is meant by breathing? Breathing is connected to the process of release of energy from organic nutrients. Shall I give examples of organic nutrients? Carbohydrate, one example. Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins and vitamins. So what says breathing? Release of energy from the organic nutrients such as carbohydrates, lipids, proteins and vitamins. So respiration on 2 mark question, defined respiration. Next, breathing is another one 2 mark question, releasing of energy from the food substances. That is said to be breathing. That is one 2 mark questions. The differentiate between respiration and breathing is one 3 mark questions. Differentiate between respiration and breathing is 3 mark questions. Next, oxygen is utilized by the organisms to break down the biomolecules such as glucose and release energy. So, oxygen is utilized by the organisms and break down biomolecules such as glucose and release energy. So biomolecules, examples of biomolecule is glucose, then oxygen act upon the glucose and release energy. Right. During this process, carbon dioxide, which is harmful gas, can be released. So when the oxygen is utilized by the organic nutrients, it not only releases the energy but also it releases the carbon dioxide, which is harmful gas. Right. It is very clear that oxygen has to be provided to the cells continuously. And carbon dioxide has to be eliminated from the cells. So these biomolecules, the oxygen act upon the biomolecules such as glucose and release energy. So oxygen is very essential for releasing the energy from the food substances. So it is very clear that oxygen has to be provided to the cells continuously, and carbon dioxide has to be eliminated from the cells. Why oxygen has to be provided the cells continuously? Then only the cells can able to live. Otherwise the cell can die. Finally we will die. Then why the carbon dioxide has to be eliminated immediately? If it is not eliminated immediately, it becomes poison, the cells will die, finally the organisms will die. So respiration is essential for life. So without respiration there is no life. Respiratory functions. It is one 5-mark question. Write down the respiratory functions. First one is to exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between atmosphere and the blood. So exchange of oxygen between the atmosphere and the blood. The oxygen which is present in the atmosphere can be entered into the blood, and the carbon dioxide which is present in the blood is expelled, sent to the environment. The first function. Second function is maintain proper balance between acids and bases of the body pH. We know that the pH between 0 to 7 is acid. Then the pH between 7 to 14 is bases. This should be maintained. Suppose if this value is maintained, the respiration is essential. This second function. Third function is to protect us from inhaled pathogen and pollutants. While we are inspire the air or inhale the air, several pathogens and pollutants can be entered into the body that should be killed by the respiratory systems. Pathogens. What is meant by pathogens? Disease causing agents are called pathogens, or disease caused microbes are called pathogens. What is meant by pollutant? Pollutant causes pollution. For example, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, these are the examples of pollutants. Next, fourth function is to maintain the vocal cords for normal communications. Vocal cords means present vocal cords here, it should be produce the voice. That voice is controlled by the respiration. The fifth point is to remove the heat produced during the cellular respiration. While the food substances entering inside the cells, the oxygen act upon that food substances and release energy. At the time of releasing energy, heat is produced. That produced heat should be eliminated from the body with help of the respiration. So it is one 5-mark question to exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between atmosphere and the blood. Second, to maintain proper balance between acid bases of body pH. Third point, to protect us from inhaled pathogens and pollutants. Fourth point is to maintain the vocal cord for normal communication. Then last point is to remove heat produced during the cellular respiration. Next, we discuss about respiratory organs in various organisms. Different animals have different respiratory organs. You know that. Different animals have different respiratory organs depending upon the habitats. And levels of organization. What is meant by habitats? Living place. Suppose some organisms can live in water, some organisms can live on land. Depending upon that, the respiratory organs are differ. Then the respiratory organ depending upon the levels of organization, that is cellular level, tissue level, organ system level. Depending upon that, the respiratory organs also differ. Now we will see respiratory organs of some animals. Organisms. Then respiratory organs. First, see the sponges. Sponges, you know that it comes under the phylum Porifera. Then coelenterata. Coelentrates and flatworms. Coelentrates, example, you know that sea anemone. Flatworms comes under the phylum Platyhelminthes. So sponges, coelentrates and flatworms. Respiratory organ is body surface. Body surface by diffusion method. So these organisms respire with the help of the body surface. How they can respire with the help of the body surface? The oxygen move from higher concentration to the lower concentration. In atmosphere, oxygen concentration is more than the body surface. So, higher concentration to lower concentration, the oxygen can easily diffuse inside the body of these organisms, sponges, coelentrates and flatworms. Second, earthworm. Earthworm's respiratory organ is skin. The oxygen can enter through the skin into the body and the carbon dioxide is removed through the skin from the body. So respiratory organ of the earthworm is skin. Third, Insects. Respiratory organs of insects is tracheal tube. Tracheal tubes. Trachea. Through that, the oxygen can enter inside the body of the insects and the carbon dioxide can be expelled out through the tracheal tubes. So, insects' respiratory organ is tracheal tubes. Arthropods. Arthropods and mollusks. Molluscans respiratory organ is gills. With the help of the gills, arthropods and mollusks can respire. These are invertebrates. Invertebrate animals. What is meant by invertebrate animals? Without the animals without backbone is called invertebrate animals. So, sponges, coelentrates and flatworms respiratory organ is body surface by diffusion method. Earthworms respiratory organ is skin. Then insects respiratory organ is tracheal tube. Then arthropods and mollusks respiratory organ is gills. Fifth one. Fishes. Fishes respiratory organ also gills. Next, amphibians. Amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. Respiratory organ is, you know that, lungs. So, these are vertebrate animals. Presence of backbone. This is invertebrate means absence of backbone. So, fishes respiratory organ is gills. Amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals respiratory organ is lungs. Next, frog. You know frog comes under amphibians. What is meant by amphibians? Amphi means double. Beings means life. Double mode of life. The frog can live under the water and also it can live on the land. When the frog entering inside the water, its respiratory organ is skin. When the frog entering inside the water, its respiratory organ is skin. When the frog comes on land, its respiratory organ is lungs. So, two respiratory organs. While the organisms under the water, its respiratory organ is skin. When the organism comes on land, its respiratory organ is lungs. Next, human respiratory system. Next, human respiratory system. The human respiratory system includes external nostrils, nasal cavity, next pharynx, Next, larynx. Next, trachea. Next, bronchi. Next, bronchioles. Next, alveoli. The human respiratory system includes external nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. See in the diagram. See, this is external nostrils. Then this is nasal cavity. Then this is pharynx. This region is pharynx. Next, this is larynx. This region is larynx. Then this is trachea. Then this is bronchus. Bronchus singular, bronchi plural. Next, bronchioles. This is bronchioles. Then the yellow color balloon-like structure is called alveoli. So the respiratory system consists of two zones. What are the two zones? One is conducting zones, other one is respiratory zones. The conducting zone starts from the external nostrils to bronchioles. See, external nostrils to bronchioles. This is conducting zones. Why it is called conducting zones? Why? Because the air or the gases can be conducted from the environment to the cells or cells to the environment. The oxygen from the environment to it goes to the cells, and the carbon dioxide which is produced in the cells should be sent to the environment. So these zones are said to be conducting zones. Next, respiratory zones. The alveoli is called a respiratory zones. Why is called respiratory zones? Actually, the respiration taking place only in the alveoli, so that alveoli is said to be respiratory zones. What is the functions of conducting zone? The functions of conducting zone is cools or warms the inhaled air. Cools or warms the inhaled air. While we are inhaling the air, there should be cools or warms. When the air is cool, suppose the atmospheric condition is more hot, at that time the respiratory system cools the air according to our body temperature. When the air is warm, suppose at the time of winter season the air is more cool, at that time the cool air should be warm according to our body temperature. It is the main functions of the conducting zones. So cools or warms the inhaled air. The air passing through the nostrils is filtered by fine airs. While we are inhaling, the air passes through the nostrils. The nostrils containing the fine airs, that fine airs filter the dust. Next, the ciliated epithelial cells lining the trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. So that contains goblet cells. It is very important in NEET and also theory. Goblet cells present in the ciliated epithelial cells. These goblet cells which secretes mucus. It contains rich in glycoprotein. Glyco means glycogen. Glycogen plus protein. The glycoprotein present in the mucus. Right. Next, microorganisms and dust particles attached to the mucus and carried upwards to pass down the gullet during swallowing. What is meant by gullet? Gullet is a small opening which is present where the mouth is end and the esophagus is started. In that particular region is gullet. So when the microorganism and dust particles attached to the mucous membrane and carried upwards and passed down to the gullet during swallowing. During swallowing, the microorganisms entering inside the stomach secretes HCl, hydrochloric acid. That hydrochloric acid kills the harmful microorganisms. Right. During swallowing, the epiglottis close the glottis. Epiglottis is the small glottis is the small opening which is present in the larynx. When the food passes near that part, automatically the epiglottis close the glottis, which prevents the entering of the food into the trachea. Right. Next, trachea is semi-flexible. Why it is semi-flexible now? Supported by the cartilaginous ring. Cartilaginous ring means a smooth bone. A smooth bone present in the trachea that extends up to mid-thoracic cavity. Up to here, mid-thoracic cavity. Then where it divides into right and left bronchi. One bronchus to each lung. Bronchi plural, bronchus singular. So the right lung has one bronchus, left lung has one bronchus. This trachea divides into, this is right bronchus, this is left bronchus. So the bronchus further divides into bronchioles. This is primary bronchus, this is secondary bronchioles, this is secondary bronchioles, this is tertiary bronchioles, this is a terminal bronchus, this is terminal bronchioles, this is said to be a respiratory bronchioles. Once again, primary bronchioles, secondary bronchioles, tertiary bronchioles, end bronchioles, this is functional bronchioles. So when the air entering inside this and goes to primary, secondary, tertiary, then terminal and end bronchioles. The end bronchioles is called alveoli. The alveoli is actually actual respiratory surface. Which is actual respiratory surface? Now alveoli is actual respiratory surface. The alveoli is made up of 3 layers. Alveoli is made up of 3 layers. One is squamous epithelial cells. Squamous epithelial cells. Second one is endothelium. Third one is basement substance. So it is made up of 3 layers. One is squamous epithelial cells, second one is endothelium, and third one is basement substances. And also the alveoli contains 2 types of cells. Type 1 cell and type 2 cell. The type 1 cell is thinner membrane, then only the air or gases can easily permeable. The type 2 is thicker. This is thinner, this is thicker. So it secretes substance, the type 2 cell secretes a substance called surfactant. The surfactant prevents the collapsing of lungs. So it is very important. Surfactant means prevent the collapsing of the lungs. So the trachea reaches the mid-thoracic cavity. Then it reaches the mid-thoracic cavity. I told you it bifurcates right and left bronchus. Then the thoracic cavity is air-tightened compartment. It is surrounded by dorsally. This is dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs and lower side diaphragm. This is the airtight compartment surrounded by the dorsally vertebral column, ventrally sternum, laterally ribs and lower side there is a diaphragm. Lung is surrounded by the double-walled membranes called pleural membranes, which contains pleural fluid which minimize the friction while the inhalation and exhalation. You know that the pressure occurs, contraction and relaxation. So to minimize the friction, the pleural fluid is present inside the double-walled membrane. Right. Next, characteristics. Characteristics of respiratory surface. This is one 5-mark question. The first character is vast surface area. Vast surface area, richly supplied blood vessels. The area is more. In this area, more number of blood vessels is supplied. Second, it is thin and moist. This respiratory surface is very thin and moist, so that the gases easily permeable. Fourth, it is direct contact to the environment. Direct contact to the environment. Next, steps involved in the respiration. This is also one 5-mark question. The first step, exchange of gases between atmosphere and the blood. Exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the blood. Second step, exchange of gases between lungs to blood. Third step, exchange of gases between blood to cells. Then fourth, oxygen and carbon dioxide can be carried by the blood. Can be carried by the blood. The oxygen is utilized by the various activities of the cells. Oxygen can be utilized by various activities of the cells and finally release carbon dioxide. Children, we discussed respiration, breathing, respiratory functions, human respiratory system, characteristic features of respiratory system, then steps involved in the respiration. Dear guys, go through this video and prepare. If you have any doubt, you should contact over the phone. Tomorrow we will discuss about mechanism of respiration. Thank you.